Are we online?
Yeah.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum all. This week we are very excited that the Ramadan is almost here. So inshallah it will be a great pleasure to go through this special chapter together, just starting before the Ramadan. This week we have again Colin Turner from the United Kingdom and Mustafa Akbulut from Boston. So inshallah I will be assisting them while going through this special chapter about Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. This is from the book Letters, and we are going through the 29th letter for those who are willing to follow up from their books. On the month of Ramadan, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. It was the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was bestowed from on high as a guidance unto men, and a self-evident proof of that guidance, and as the standard to discern true from false. So inshallah, during this chapter, we are going to talk specifically about this, how the Ramadan is related to Quran and how it is the month of Quran. But just before going to the first point, I want to ask my speakers if anybody wants to add anything in this point, at this point, related to Ramadan being month of Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. Nothing in particular, except that every month is month of Quran. Maybe Ramadan we give it a little more attention, perhaps, but in actual fact we know that we know that Quran is for all times and all places and all people, and Ramadan just gives us, I think, an opportunity to focus, just as the 5 prayers in a day help us to focus, standing before our Creator and reaffirming our connection with Him. We need to actually be connected all of the time, not just the 5 times a day, but because we are heedless, because we are forgetful, Allah gives us certain marks, certain times and certain places which are seemingly more important, more momentous than others. And I think from this point of view, we say that Ramadan is the month of Quran, because of course it was first revealed in Ramadan.
Yeah, I agree. Jazakallah. I mean, it is indeed right, like the Quran, and we talked about in the last few sections as I was listening in, the Quran as a miracle, being the biggest miracle of Prophet ﷺ. So in that sense, it's actually a great honor, right, for a month to be called a month of Quran. So I think it just raises the value of Ramadan a lot. It should, and yeah, as Kolnabi said, it is indeed, it's every month, especially like understanding the meanings of the Quran, and what is being told to us in the Quran, trying to understand that. But Ramadan, inshallah, becomes this focal point for us to be able to do this. And we lost the shared screen, by the way. I mean, not lost, but it changed to something else.
Okay.
Brother Baykar.
Yes.
You switched apps, looks like.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, that's it from my side too.
Okay. Anything else about Ramadan being the time for Quran?
I mean, like one thing, I guess, like maybe we can discuss more later too. But like, it's great, right? That it's a month that we are reciting Quran a lot, inshallah, more than we do in other times. As almost like a theme, right? That has been on these webinars and panels, has been that like going beyond that, right? Trying to read the Quran as it is talking to us and understanding its meaning and reading the universe, right? All these are somewhat related.
All right.
We can see the slides, by the way. You don't have to switch around like that.
Okay. I'm having a little technical issue, so inshallah. So, inshallah, during this chapter, we will go through that little bit more, how we are, trying to be busy ourselves more with the Quran. But this whole month is, I guess, being spiritually ready to be an addressee of the Quran, to be really focusing on the Quran and bringing its meanings to our life. This whole month could be or should be something that we really live through the Quran. So inshallah, we'll talk about this little more in the coming sections. Inshallah. I want to go through the first point, inshallah. If you don't have anything to add.
No, please carry on.
Bismillah. First point, the fast of Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is also one of the greatest of the marks and observances of Islam. The fast of Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. It is also one of the greatest of the marks and observances of Islam. So here I want to just stop by and ask about the marks of Islam. It's a translation for sha'air. So as we know, for example, adhan is a sha'air of Islam, a mark of Islam, or minarets are marks of Islam. When we go to a place that majority Muslim land, we will, definitely realize these things. And, Muslims are here, or here, Quran is the style of life, and the religion of Islam is dominant in this place. So Ramadan is definitely, I believe, one of them. Even non-Muslims are well aware of it. When the Ramadan comes, everybody knows about it, and people know that Muslims are observing Ramadan. So what's the significance of this? Maybe Quranic can shortly talk about the sha'air, why it's important, why it is there, what's the significance of sha'air from the Muslims' point of view.
Well, as well as giving us an identity that we can, we can focus on, marks are there, landmarks are there for us, to guide our way across. We talk a lot about, the life being like a desert, and the only way that we can navigate our way across the desert is, in the name of Allah, Bismillah. We've talked about that before. And there are certain landmarks you know, which we pick out as distinguishing marks. They are what distinguishes our path, really, and it gives us some kind of stability. You know, it's the same as the day is cut into 5 parts, you know, each of them is represented by, Nursi talks about inqilab, you know, revolutions. 5 different revolutions in a day, it means, you know, these are standout moments and standout practices which give the day stability and give it points of reference. So these things are very important points of reference for us. If there were no points of reference, it would be all very vague and abstract and fuzzy, you know, we wouldn't know really what we're about. But these things give us not just an identity, but they give us stable points of reference, I think.
And like one thing that comes to my mind right when we talk about like sha'air is like in English there's this saying like something is in the air, right? I mean something is felt even if it is not really obvious. Ramadan is something like that, right? I mean you can feel it in the air. I mean you can, because you see people are doing one thing for that period of time, and that instills a sense of community, a sense of guidance, as Colin Najam said, right? And it is, I think, is one of the best ways to show and demonstrate Islam as it is lived in a Muslim's life, right? I mean, and it is probably the best way of dawah, the best way to show Islam's ways and beauty. I mean, because actions speak louder than words, and these actions, like the prayers, 5 daily prayers and fast, they are really good points that identify Muslims, but also they speak louder than someone's actions or I mean, sometimes someone's words for non-Muslims or the Muslims around us who are not practicing. So in that sense, they're reminders, being those reminders of Islam, I think as a whole, I guess in some part of the Risale-i Nur, says, although, you know, some of the sha'air might not be obligatory or fard, they might go become more important than them in certain aspects if they are so they have to be kept in some way, otherwise, you know, and I guess and I think these type of messages that go out of these like marks of Islam is lost if we, and like then personal obligatory actions might not have as much power to spread the message of Islam or showing the, you know, showing the beauty of Islam. So, but these sha'air, these marks of Islam are really helpful in I think showing as a community what Islam is all about and its beauty and its message. That's the other piece that I can think of about sha'air.
All right. I was planning to maybe go through this sha'air a little bit, but it will take us a little off the topic, so maybe it's just for now enough. Inshallah, let me continue if you don't want to add anything else about this.
I just wanted to say that sometimes, and it's very unfortunate, you know, the sha'air is the only thing that we can see, unfortunately, and we have to be very, very careful that these sha'air are outgrowths of our iman, you know, and not just there as things to give us pride in our identity. They really have to mean something, and that's why they are, you know, sha'air, really. They have to have meaning and not just be nominal, not just be landmarks, you know. They have to really, really have meaning and be supported by action.
And what I usually observe is that Allah puts us to test if we are really seriously doing those sha'air or those actions for His sake, or are we just doing it because everybody else is doing them, right? I mean, we see it again and again, right? in our daily lives, whenever we we do something, like we pray or something, and then something happens, like our boss or someone it says some remark about it or something, and that's a testing ground, right? That at that point we are in the fork of the road, right? We can either continue doing it or do it because we believe in it, or we leave it aside. Similar things happened, right, with other Shia in the past. In the US, for example, like the hijab is a good example. Like some people were afraid after the last elections. I mean, in 5 years ago, some people were afraid. I've heard people who took off their hijab because they thought, the government now will not be tolerant. So those are kind of, and then we, back in Turkey, of course, we had a lot of these imtihan, a lot of these tests that Allah puts us through. And yes, we have to be very serious, and Allah puts us through those tests so that we can prove that if we are doing these, practicing these just for others are doing it, or we are really believing in them when we are doing that. So yeah, that's really an important point, as Quran Najam said. You have to really do that for the sake of Allah, not just for flowing with the crowd. Yes.
We have a question. Brother Adam is asking about how children and as well as adults can connect to the meaning of Ramadan. Do you want to say anything specific, or during the chapter, I guess we'll be mostly focusing on that part, that connection, how it's really a part of our life, how it's kind of motivating our lives. And so we will be mostly focusing on the meaning of Ramadan. But if you wanna, address this question at this point from any perspective, you're welcome.
I think it's a bit early to discuss the text. We haven't read it, so we need to read it first, I think.
Yeah, we can read them. We can probably pull out examples for children as well, inshallah, after that.
There are many purposes and instances of wisdom in the fast of Ramadan, which look to both Allah Almighty's dominicality, His rububiyyah, and man's social life and his personal life, and the training of his instinctual soul, and his gratitude for divine bounties. One of the many instances of wisdom in fasting in respect of Allah Almighty's Lordship is as follows. So inshallah, we will discuss all through these different points. The first point is related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Lordship, His rububiyyah. Allah Almighty creates the face of the earth in the form of a table laden with bounties, and arranges on the table every sort of bounty as an expression of min haythu la yahtasib, from whence he does not expect. In this way, he states the perfection of his lordship and his mercifulness and compassionateness. People are unable to discern clearly the reality of the situation, while in the sphere of causes, under the veil of heedlessness, and they sometimes forget it. So before going through the rest of the chapter, I want to pause here for a second and maybe think together on this meaning, because this is all about our existence. This is why we exist. This is why the universe exists. So if there's only one creator, and if this universe is for those who came to know him, to try to understand his different attributes with the manifestations in this universe. So this should be the first aim of our existence, the whole creation. So I guess from this point of view, our lives should be all built up on this particular meaning. But as he said, Ustad here, makes the point, people are unable to discern clearly the reality of the situation while in the sphere of causes under the veil of heedlessness, and they sometimes forget it. So do you want to make any points about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rububiyyah in this universe? So how this creation is only talking about it, and why we don't directly see it all the time?
I think we do see it all the time, but we close our eyes to it. It's there all the time. We're talking about nurturing and sustaining and developing and growing and educating and looking after and paying attention to. These things happen all the time. If you think of parents with their children, parents are a very good example of rububiyyah. The family here asked about the meaning of Ramadan. Although it's still quite early to, glean any definitive meanings, we can say that it is about being aware of Allah as Rabb, in every way possible. All different kinds of bounties that, the author is talking about represent all of the different ways in which the Creator nurtures his creation. He looks after it, he tends to it, he develops it, he helps it to grow. He gives it vibrancy, he gives it life and existence, and he continues that, he builds on that. And we see it all the time. We see it, in the spring with the birth of all of the new plants and animals, and then in the summer as they reach their, pinnacle of perfection. Then in the fall, in the autumn, they start to wither and decay, and then in the winter they're gone. So we see this cycle of nurturing and looking after and tending to. We see it on a macro scale in the whole of the universe, and we see it on a micro scale in every human life, in the lives of human beings, in lives of children. Right from the very moment that they're born, they're being nurtured and looked after. And we forget this because mistakenly we attribute this lordship to other human beings. And when a child does that, obviously children see their parents as a kind of Rab, and that's fine, because this is the way that they understand who their creator is eventually. So for children and for adults, Ramadan is about looking at the creation and understanding the lordship, the rububiyyah, acknowledging it and glorifying it and giving thanks for it. And of course, it's brought to our attention quite acutely because for most of the day, we appear to have been abandoned. We're not getting food, we're not getting water. And that is actually showing us the value and the worth of the things which are bestowed on us, on the bounties.
Mustafa, you want to step in?
No, yeah, I definitely agree with Koen Hocam about all the things he said. It's really it's everywhere, right? And we will, read after this how like fasting and the iftar time really tells us about our creator. But one other thing that I wanted to point out here is that, and I always like these, I guess, how to read the Risale-i Nur type of tips type of a thing. And one thing that I see after and after again is that the order of some of these wisdoms, right? Whenever Bediüzzaman lists out certain wisdoms behind something, usually the first wisdom is the strongest one, right? And for fasting, right, the first wisdom and purpose that is put out there is understanding the rububiyyah, lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is that means that this is like the biggest, right? Because as Konajam said beautifully, is that our purpose in this life is to know him, is to through his creation, um, to know him, and that doesn't change for fasting either. And that is the instilling that that notion that we are being trained, we are being nurtured and sustained by someone is a great meaning to learn and also instill in our kids. Like since we started about talking about kids, again, at the continuation of this, it will come right, like about like how fasting gives that notion of everyone being together and trying to and waiting for a command to break our fasts is that moment, right? Someone can actually feel that we are not on our own, or we don't really own ourselves, and we are being nurtured and trained by someone. And that type of an education is actually the key for for even for a kid, right? There are a couple examples that come to my mind from the Risale-i Nur. Is one is at the end of 27th word about like uh, uh, there is like when he's explaining why companions of Prophet ﷺ cannot be really reached, or that time. And there, like one thing that he points out is that like everything, all the common interactions have been around um, trying to know Allah better, right? Like people were all striving towards their purpose. Everybody's purpose around you were to know Allah better and understand His commands and try to live a life according to that. And that gave a level of education to the people of that age that is beyond any formal type of education. And the one thing that we can get for ourselves from that type of an explanation is that as Muslims, Muslim families, we should create a environment in our homes that type of a natural education, or that is not really verbal, but more about like understanding uh, understanding and messaging our for example poverty against the creator, or and like everything being created by him, and uh, living that, right, is really a good way to teach our kids. And Ramadan and the iftar time teaches that. And the second example that comes to my mind is about the prayer for the rain, right? Like it is advisable to bring small kids to those prayers for rain. And an interesting explanation that Zaman gives for that is that because we normally think that okay, they are innocent, so their prayers will be accepted. That is, of course, fine. There's one aspect, but the one aspect that Zaman brings out there is that it is for those kids to understand that their fathers and mothers, they are not able to bring rain, and they are asking for someone else to bring the rain. And say in the same way, Ramadan and every conversation I think we should have should be around giving that instance, like we are not the source, Allah is the source. We are not expecting things from trees or our bosses or someone. We are every instance of our lives, we're expecting things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. And again, this is not this is not a lecture, right? This is something that we would need to nurture our kids with by living it. And that happens better like in Ramadan. I think that feeling definitely sinks in with the scene in breaking the fast. We cannot really eat something because we are not really ordered to yet. But maybe I went ahead a little bit further, but
thank you, Mr.
that was one of the things I thought about.
Yeah, inshallah, let's cover this next slide. So inshallah, we can talk a little bit more about this specific meaning.
Yeah.
But during the month of Ramadan, the people of faith suddenly appear as a well-disciplined army. As sunset approaches, they display a worshipful attitude as though having been invited to the eternal monarch's banquet. They await the command of fall to and help yourselves. Respond to that compassionate, illustrious, and universal mercy with comprehensive, exalted, and orderly worship. They respond to that compassionate, illustrious, and universal mercy with comprehensive, exalted, and orderly worship. To those people who fail to participate in such elevated worship and noble bounties deserve to be called human beings. So it was very interesting to me. While we're talking about the whole universe is manifesting the lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The whole universe, from atoms, particles to the galaxies, they're doing their duty. They're not even taking one wrong step. They're not even going an iota out of the path. So they're going according to the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at every second, at every corner of the universe. So the whole universe is kind of declaring, as Colin Hojam put it nicely, there every action we observe out there is kind of heralding this meaning to us. But another surprising, very interesting, the interesting point that I want to really focus on, that the examples given, the Colin Hojam gave, was all about the human life. So the nurturing, and then the parenting, our relation with our parents. So who is the one in the universe will really observe this great meaning, this huge happening? Who is the observant? Who is the witness? Why this is all happening? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala introducing himself to whom? So who's the addressee? So obviously it is the human being. As far as we can comprehend, we can know, human being is the one, but unfortunately we are not there. We are missing. We are missing our supervisor position in a way. The whole department, the whole factory is working, but the supervisor is not there to report in a way. So even though most of the time we miss our duty of observation, but we need to even take a second step and declare this, to present this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our worships, but we are kind of not there. So in Ramadan, I guess we are back to work in a way. So this paragraph, I guess this slide puts it beautifully in its place. So how the human beings are now in a way back to work, what this represents, what is this whole thing about? Any reflections on this, Colin Hojam?
I'm still overwhelmed by Mustafa's comments there on the prayer for rain. I think he's hit the secret of child psychology, which in the non-believing milieu, in I don't want to say the West, not the geographical West, but the conceptual West, where the sun of religion set a long time ago. When children are brought up, because they're children, they treat their parents as though they are their Rab. And when they see that their parents have failed them, they despair, because they haven't been taught who the real Rab is. And so when they see their own parents, who are fallible human beings, flawed, credible, fallible human beings, when their parents fail them, the children are distraught. And this is the cause for a lot of family breakups, and disharmony in the family. Whereas if from a young age, in a very compassionate way, as Mustafa John was saying, take your children with you to the prayer for rain and show them who the real Rab is. Or, when you're fasting and you break your fast, as this passage is saying, at 8:31, it's haram for you to eat. At 8:32, it's halal. Whose command is it that turns something from being forbidden to being lawful in just 1 minute? This is your Rab, not your father, not your mother. They are there to look after you. You are put in their care, under their supervision, but they are not the source of all the love that they give to you, of all the compassion that they show you, of their sustaining, of their nurturing. They are the reflections, they are the mirrors. And, I didn't realize this about the prayer for rain. I didn't know that was what is told to us that we should do. And that has suddenly uncovered such a huge veil from over the issue of child rearing, of pedagogy, of how to bring up a child. So I have to thank Mustafa for that.
I learned from some other brothers.
Of course, you're not the source of it, but you are the vehicle for it. You are the mirror for it. So we have to thank you. And Ramadan, it's also, the Shahrani family who asked this question. See how Qadar works, how wonderful that is, that they were sincere and they had a question and we thought about it, and then this beautiful truth comes out of it. It's amazing. SubhanAllah, it's wonderful. Sorry, I didn't answer your question, Baikar. I was
thank you. It's all related. It's in the same sphere of discussion. Alhamdulillah, we are getting there step by step, understanding this first point. So again, thank you for putting it nicely. The first focus is to get the rida of Allah. So to form our lives around the Quran. So definitely, as some brothers, stating in the chat too, maybe we can, if we have time, we can go through that too. So definitely Quran is building up our lives around Tawheed, and Ramadan is one of those sha'air which makes it much easier for us, and makes it really in a way possible for us and for our kids.
Yeah, and for your second point too, Bakrabi, right? Like as you said, like the whole universe is pointing towards unity, although we don't understand it like through the veil of causes. Like this is like another theme, I guess, in Risale-i, right? And another theme, I guess, the theme of the universe around like there we are in multiplicity, but we are supposed to find unity through that multiplicity, and look beyond that veil of multiplicity to find unity. And these worships like fasting really are helpful, because and there are some keywords that I can see here, right? Like, for example, the people of faith suddenly appear as a well-disciplined army, right? Like army they are multiple people, but they act together. So there is some unity, although they are like multiple people. And sometimes again, those causes, like things coming from different directions, can make us feel that like everything is random. but it is not, right? Everything is disciplined, everything is nurtured and created and sustained by one creator, right? That notion is enforced, reinforced with the worshipful attitude in Ramadan, and right, and everybody acting together on one thing shows that the source is the same, the creator, the sustainer is the same. Again, these are almost like subliminal messages, right, to a believer, that um, we should focus on unity. We should try to see beyond multiplicity and to find unity. And again, these are great things to tell us about that.
Thank you. Sometimes we are taking some comments from our volunteer speakers. If any one of them wants to add any meaning, they can raise hand. Otherwise, we have like a little bit more than 10 minutes, so I can step to the next slide. If
we only have 10 minutes, that's amazing.
Maybe a little more. Yeah.
It went by so quickly.
Yes.
You can probably read the next one.
Yes, please read it.
Yeah. Second point, one of the many instances of wisdom in the fast of the blessed month of Ramadan with respect to thankfulness for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's bounties is as follows. As is stated in the first word, a price is required for the foods a tray bearer brings from the royal kitchen. But to look on those priceless bounties as valueless while tipping the tray bearer and not to recognize the one who bestowed them is the greatest foolishness. Allah Almighty has spread innumerable sources of bounties over the face of the earth for mankind, in return for which He wishes thanks, as the price of those bounties. The apparent causes and holders of the bounties resemble tray bearers. We pay a certain price to them and are indebted to them, and even though they do not merit it, are over respectful and grateful to them. Whereas the true bestower of bounties is infinitely more deserving of thanks than those causes. Whereas the true bestower of bounties is infinitely more deserving of thanks than those causes which are merely the means of the bounty. To thank Him, then, is to recognize that the bounties come directly from Him. It is to appreciate their worth and to perceive one's own need for them. I want to stop here before continuing, and it's very interesting. He made 3 points. So for this thankfulness, to thank Him, first of all, we should recognize that the bounties come directly from Him, and to appreciate their worth and to perceive one's own need for them. To recognize that the bounties come directly from Him is to appreciate their worth and to perceive one's own need for them. Let me read the next one, so it's kind of opening. Fasting in Ramadan, then, is the key to true, sincere, extensive, and universal thankfulness. The key to true, sincere, extensive, and universal thankfulness. For at other times of the year, most people whose circumstances are not difficult do not realize the value of many bounties, since they do not experience real hunger. If their stomachs are full, and especially if they are rich, They do not understand the degree of bounty present in a piece of dry bread. But when it is time to break the fast, the sense of the taste testifies that the dry bread is a precious divine bounty in the eyes of a believer. During Ramadan, everyone, from the monarch to the destitute, manifests a sort of gratitude through understanding the value of those bounties. So, inshallah, Colin Hocam or Mustafa, you want to step in about this meanings that we come recognize the bounties are directly coming from him and appreciate their worth and perceiving our need for them. Any words on this?
Colin Hocam, do you wanna start? If not, I can.
Sorry, Mustafa,
Ah.
you go first. Sorry.
Okay, sorry for that. No, I mean, not much to say. It is pretty clear, and it probably is related to some of the previous pieces or previous comments that we both made, I imagine. But yeah, I mean, one key point, as you said, by Karabi, is probably the understanding or realizing our need, right? Like it is, although we are being nurtured, again, our goal in this life is to offer thanks and worship, right? And the core of worship is offering thanks. And as the vicegerent of the earth, right, the Khalifa are, the humans' responsibility is to represent all those individual thanks by the creation and present to them, right, to the creator, as explained in many places under Risale-i Nur as well, about like at-tahiyyat, right? I mean, those words, for example, are really the representation, or iyyaka na'budu, right? I'm using like we worship you and we ask from you. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, right? The noon there. In any case, but to be able to start that process, I think we need to first realize that we don't really own anything. We are not really capable of anything, and we really need all these things. And in that sense, I think getting the fasting pretty much tells us that, we are not really, our free will has its limits, and by being forbidden to do what we normally could think of a normal action, or an everyday action like eating, and one of the more, I guess, essential functions and actions that we do, being forbidden from that, again, gives us that perspective, that we are not really free, like we are not free from that perspective. We are also not free, actually, when what we think as we are, as we are free to do, free to act, is not really our call. And all these bounties, all these things, it gives us this perspective, because it, I guess, it kind of disrupts our cycle, right? I mean, so, and it disrupts our routine, in a way, so that, to pretty much helps us look up. I mean, and it's probably with the old worship, right? I mean, daily prayer is a disruption to our daily routine 5 times a day, so that we, stop, right? I mean, there is that thing, right? Stop and smell the flowers. It is exactly like that. I mean, it gives us that stop, to smell the flowers, appreciate the flowers, and actually understand and realize that those flowers are thanking Allah and then presenting their thanks to Allah. So that I think that is one piece that I can think about. Like this disruption helps us gain that perspective.
Thank you, Mustafa. I want to ask Colin Hocam. So, Ustad here mentions maybe it's a little bit back to the point in the first one. So, the apparent causes and holders of the bounties resemble tray bearers. You pay a certain price to them, indebted to them. So, we are thankful to good weather. We are thankful to, fertile soil. We are thankful to, a sunny land, etc., etc. So, what are the other causes? Maybe we sometimes overlook, and we are kind of over appreciating. Maybe our boss or our parents. I don't know what else can we count in this list. How can we make ourselves more aware of it, or remind ourselves? Maybe we already know, but it's sometimes not there because we give the tip, but we forget the real price, I guess, right?
The problem is that we give ownership to other things because we also have a sense of ownership. So we thank the waiter in the restaurant, even though he hasn't cooked it, he's just brought it for us, but he's done something. And because we like to attribute ownership to ourselves, we attribute ownership to others. And in actual fact, causes have absolutely no part to play in it apart from acting as a veil. So even though they don't merit gratitude, it is for our own good that we are asked to pay a certain price to them. In other words, we have to respect the order in creation. Allah creates with a certain order. And, paying a certain price means when the waiter brings your food in a restaurant, you don't just take it from him and say nothing. You thank him because he's done something which is in the order of the universe. And he could have thrown it at you, but he didn't. He put it on your table. He could have not smiled at you, but he did. And it doesn't matter that it was a false smile. That's not our business. And there was a smile, and he put the food on the table and we thank him. That's good for him as well to understand something. It's a kind of teaching to that person as well. We're teaching adab. This is all to do with adab, and it's for our own good. It's not because they actually deserve thanks. They don't, because they haven't done anything.
Very interesting. You brought it. It reminded me that Ustad mentions this flowering, blossoming, fruitful trees are smiling to our face. Also, like that waiter.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're over respectful and maybe over grateful at times because we have this problem with ownership. And in Ramadan comes, and one of the wisdoms is it breaks the idol of ownership because it makes us realize that we are weak and impotent. We don't have anything and we aren't anything. We came from nothing. We came from a sperm and an egg. We were given existence. Existence was bestowed on us. It's not from us. So we neither own anything, nor do we have the ability to do anything. So we are ajaz, we are impotent, and we are faqir, we are poor. And Ramadan, more than any other time of the year, teaches us that. It teaches us that the source of your existence is Allah and Him only. And the sustainer of your existence is not the food, it's Him. Food is a veil. The drink is a veil. Everything else that He bestows on us, these are apparent. These are not what are giving us a fulfillment and enjoyment. He is doing that directly. And Ramadan is part of the reason is to teach us that we are needy. We are needy. Every one of us, even though we may have a big house and lots of money and lots of food on the table, in actual fact, we are like everyone else. We are as needy and poor as everyone else. And Ramadan is there to try to teach us that.
Thank you. A few minutes, I guess we're out of time, but I just wanted to read this short part before completing. Furthermore, since eating is prohibited during the day, they say those bounties do not belong to me. I'm not free to eat them, for they belong to someone else and are his gift. I await his command. They recognize the bounty to be bounty. They recognize the bounty to be bounty and so give thanks. Thus, fasting in this way is in many respects a key to gratitude, the gratitude being man's fundamental duty. Before closing, any words on this, the bounty being to be bounty? How so we recognize it in what way? Any words?
I think Colin Hoca's previous explanations are pretty to this point, right? I mean, the bounty, since we think we own it, we think we think of it as not given or not bestowed. But I think with Ramadan, with fasting, inshallah, we can understand and realize that everything, I mean, absolutely everything is given and bestowed on us. It's not really our doing. We don't really have any share, and that is the key, I guess, to true thanks.
And maybe slightly different than understanding it. As believers, supposedly we should know it already, but I guess recognizing that this is worthy of calling a bounty, we really need it. But we are full stomach and with table full of food, I guess we are not there, and we're constantly in need of remembering maybe this meaning in a way, and Ramadan should be the time for that, inshallah.
Yeah, we can talk. Sorry.
I ask Allah for this because most of the time in iftar time we are hungry, so we just rush to fulfill ourselves, and then in the sahur maybe I'm gonna be hungry during the day, so sometimes we it's a little hard to maybe feel it, but yes, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I know the time is gone, but I was just going to say that this is something that we can discuss inshallah next week. But
yes,
there is a bit of trickery that happens in Ramadan, because we are told, that, oh yes, you must you must fast, because one of the reasons is so that you feel empathy with the poor and those that have no food, which, okay, that may be the case, but in one sense that is a bit of a diversion. It diverts us to think about others rather than thinking about ourselves, because we are the ones who are poor. We are the ones, it's okay, other people are financially poor, materially poor. That's not the point, really. The point is to realize that you are poor. However much food you have on the table, however much money you have in the bank, none of that is from you. And existentially, you are absolutely poverty-stricken, impotent. So sometimes we trick ourselves and say, yes, we feel you cannot feel empathy for people who are perpetually hungry, because you know that at 8:30 you're going to be eating anyway. So it's very difficult to feel empathy for those who are always hungry. But you have to feel some kind of responsibility for yourself, because you are always poor and always impotent. That never stops.
Thank you for bringing this up. Inshallah, we can start discussing this for
Inshallah.
the next week, and we are out of time. If anybody does not want to add anything, I want to stop here. And again, you can watch the recording if you weren't able to catch up on YouTube, and follow us on the websites and Facebook. and inshallah we will try to continue from where we left for the next week. Thank you for joining us, all listeners and our speakers.